Good morning, boomers. Wow. Speaking of booming. So I'm not going to be as entertaining as that. I won't be as entertaining as this. I'm not Philip Gully. That's what you're expecting today, I know, but I'm not. But I want to talk today about the first week of our Everybody Always. And my topic is, are you smiling? I want to focus on young people, but a little bit different. Not quite like this Gen Zer. Gen Zer? It's my grandson. I'm required to put a grandson photo in every speak I do. Thank you very much. And you can see the genetic difference in him. He looks at the world from a different perspective than I do as a millennial, or a boomer, right? But I want to talk about that post-college through young parent age. The millennials, the whole lot younger than the hands I saw go up earlier today group. The group that's the friends of our kids. I mean, I love my kids and I miss my kids, but gosh, I miss their friends too, don't you? The people I think we need to reach out and embrace. Some of this is selfish. Like I said, I miss my daughter, I miss my son-in-law since they're too far away to really see, and we do a lot of Skype conversations, which is a little different, but at least you can see the look at their face. But their friends, I miss their creativity, I miss their sense of awe at this big old world. And without their sense of awe, I tend to fall back into the Andy Rooney. What's wrong with this big old world? Did you ever notice how, well, anyway. And I think that influence can weigh on our souls if we're not very careful. I had the great fortune to work for 3 years at the Bicentennial with a couple of oldsters and a group of young professionals that were all either college interns or fresh out of college, first job professionals. And they gave me all these new perspectives. One of the things that they gave me was music, which we'll hear a little bit of later. And then I showed them what an iPod was, and they'd never seen an iPod in their life. I said, how do we put this music on my iPod? And they're like, you put it on your phone, dude. You don't put it on your iPod. I didn't know that Facebook was passé. I didn't know that Lyft was replacing Uber. I didn't even know that Bumble is the new way to connect. So they gave me a lot of things, but I hope that I gave them something back as well. Maybe some perspective that we have from a lifetime of trial and error, from our experiences, from what we've seen in the world, and life learning, if you will. And some of it I'd like to think maybe stuck. And Jesus really loved young people, and we are beating Matthew 18 to death today, just in case you haven't heard enough of it. So I'll cover a little different part of it, because it's a wonderful part, and the part about millstones around your neck, you need to read that part. But here's what I think is important in this one. You realize, don't you, that children's personal angels are constantly in touch with my Father in heaven. So I think what that says to me is that young people have a lot more attention from their angels until we get to a point where the angels kind of take a step back and our self-determination takes in. And if we want to get back in touch with our angels, because they're always there, we need to be a little more open. Elemental was the word that was used earlier. And we're advised to learn from these young people. Young people need us in a way that I think is particularly useful for our years of experience. If they had all the answers, they really wouldn't care, and sometimes they do, but that's only on the surface, and below that, they're really looking for ways to make a difference, to put down roots, to grow. There aren't many player coaches in under 14 soccer, you may have noticed, so you have all been coached and pulled into being coaches and done things with children to help them understand how to turn that sense of awe and wonder into a way to make it in the world, but never lose it. We need to be reminded not to lose that sense of awe and wonder. And we're gardeners, and gardeners plant and tend and nurture, and we've got a real opportunity right now for us to sharpen our hoes and rakes and maybe do a little bit different kind of gardening. The garden applied for a Lilly grant designed to help promising churches engage young adults, and that would be post-college through early kid years. And upon review of really hundreds of proposals, the garden was selected to receive the Lilly grant. And Carolyn and her team, everyone in the office, worked so hard on this, and the volunteers too, that it's really rewarding to see it. This just happened like in the last 2 weeks, so it's a very new thing. But Lilly recognized that the garden has something special to offer to everyone, and they want to see us be a model for the rest of congregations that want to learn how to build a community of the new faithful, if you will. So Carolyn reached out to me, and I've agreed to kind of head up this grand initiative as a volunteer. And I'm really ready to work on this because, like I said, I miss my millennials. I miss my young people. It's a chance for us, though, to share our message, to share what we know, to reach out to a new population and provide that caring, mentoring environment that I think we have here. If the garden message is shared, I think it'll strike a chord, and I think the experience will be really resonant with our successors, and that's kind of what it's about. The church will pass to them eventually. In his article, 12 Reasons Millennials Are Over Church, Millennial Sam Easton shared these reasons amongst others, and I recommend it to you. Nobody's listening. You're all failing to adapt. H.G. Wells said, "Adapt or perish, now as ever, is nature's inexorable imperative." Helping the poor in the community isn't a priority. The "you can't sit with us" effect, which means, we'd love to have you in church, but we've got a little section over here for you young people, and we're going to sit over here and talk about what we're going to do after the service today. We want to be mentored, not preached at. We want you to talk with us about controversial issues because no one else is. And we want you to stop talking about us unless you're actually going to do something about it. I thought about that for a bit and thought, we do a lot of that already. The garden is really on the forefront of these things that he is seeking, and I think we have potential in all 12 of the areas that he has represented. I think the garden's a place for him and his friends and his peers and his colleagues, those that are seeking, that have not found a way. That's how most of us got here at one point in time or the other, seeking a new way of worship. And we have to be welcoming, and we need to be smiling. So I learned about the power of smiling. 30-some-odd years ago, Chris and I went to Europe as newlyweds, and we traveled around some. And at that point in time, the French had a particular reputation for being difficult, off-putting, and kind of rude by our standards. The trick that we learned, or hack in the millennial parlance of life, of how to not enter into a conversation with a difficult person, we learned in a bank. So here's the setup. So two young Americans, pretty obviously Americans, at that time, 30 years ago, we had our bell-bottoms on, and the polyester shirt with the puff sleeves. We were rocking Europe, right? So we walk into a bank to do a transaction. There are 3 tellers. All 3 tellers look up. 2 immediately look down. The third one smiles. So which line do you suppose we chose? So we went to the smiling line, and not only did we do our transaction, but both of us in our broken foreign languages, we talked a little bit about her. She talked a little bit to us about what we hoped to see while we were there. And we walked out of that experience thinking, well, that's the key. The key to being in something that you don't understand is to look for the people who are smiling. And so we have to be those people, and merci à vous, mademoiselle, for helping us with that. The garden is a smiling community, I think. We're focused and founded on and committed to being open, inclusive, and progressive. All ideas that appeal to these young adults that we're looking for. As a congregation, I think this is where our mission and values really intersect with those of young people. It's like the old story of the antique carpenter. You've heard this before, but it's not Matthew 18, who was walking along and he was heading to the city, maybe for his last time. And in part of the journey, there was a rickety old bridge across a particularly dangerous chasm. And after he crossed it, he decided to rebuild, and he built a new bridge. He was a good carpenter. So when he was resting after finishing his work, and a traveler came up to him and said, "Old man, why did you do this? You're not going to use this for very long." And the carpenter said, "I built it not for myself. I built it for those who follow me so their trip will be less arduous." And like the carpenter, the garden's been built. We're here, and we're doing the job that I think we've been sent to do. We need to let other people know. One thing the carpenter didn't think of maybe was how to let people know that now the way was clear, and this was the best way to get to the city. Perhaps he needed a marketing partner, and then the bridge could have been a little bit different. So we're advised to, it could happen, to love and learn from young people. Sorry. That seemed pretty familiar to me. So this is our challenge. We have the garden, a wonderful mission, a message, a place, a joyous service, wonderful music, a caring congregation. The bridge is built, but we have to let people know that we're here, the seekers, the journeyers, and let them know that it's going to be useful to them in their travels. So from the garden's lily application, we don't need young people to come in and make the garden something we wish it were or could be. Instead, we can provide a space to build first relationships. From there, we can collaborate and exploring and experimenting to see how God can work in us and through us transform this world. We'll seek to find out what the progressive gospel looks like now and into the 21st century. And this could include expanding some of the things we already do, exploring and experimenting with new things, or whatever we discover together. Does that sound like Carolyn? Whatever we discover together. So we were in Paris in 2013 during the celebration of the 850th anniversary of the Notre Dame. Throngs gathered every day to honor this iconic Paris landmark and be inspired by the enduring beauty and its majesty. But then, 6 years later, you know that things changed. It's funny, but from certain angles, it looks almost the same. But yet, from other angles, it's drastically different. But through it all, we found that there's hope. There were still throngs of people, still getting their selfies. Some people wanted to be in front of the part that looked the same. Some people really wanted to be in front of the part that looked different, that was challenged, that was damaged. On a damp day, you can smell still the smell of fire. But there was always that hope. It'll never be the same, but it can still be something really, really special. The question is, how will Notre Dame change now that it has the possibility, the opportunity? And will it change based on those who have the money or those who have the vision? The young will inherit the church and determine its future. I think we can develop not a different garden, but a new plot in our garden. Maybe grow a more elusive and rewarding crop. We provide a caring environment that allows for this creativity, ingenuity, openness. We have created the space for encouragement and experimentation and the powerful possibilities that come when we share in the discovery of faith and the joy of living a good life. If we follow the example set by Jesus and his admonitions, we can do our good works anywhere. The garden ministry is built on this possibility and not ownership or location. We're not tied to places. We can be fast and loose. The opportunity we have is to bring the message of the garden to a generation of potential churchgoers. This is not just a question of increasing our attendance. It's really a chance to do the mission work we feel called to do. The joy of a considered life that makes room for and welcomes all people. Matthew recalled the time when Jesus left the house and sat on the beach, and in no time at all, a crowd gathered around him, and to escape the crowd, he got onto a boat. And as he was on the boat, he uses a pulpit and began telling stories. What do you make of this? A farmer planted seed. As he scattered the seed, some of it fell on the road, and the birds ate it, or the geese this morning if you saw them when you came in. Some fell on the gravel. It sprouted quickly, but it couldn't grow roots, and when the sun came out, it withered just as fast. Some fell in the weeds, and as it came up, was strangled by the weeds. Some fell on good earth and produced a harvest beyond his wildest dreams. So, are we ready to take a risk and sow our seeds and make a new garden from this? Can we be that fertile ground? Can we be the smiling place to welcome a new generation of the potentially faithful? This is the start of something big. If you want to be part of the Garden Youth Initiative, come see me after service or connect through Realm or through the garden staff, and we'll see where this leads us. Our final song today, just to get you into this mode, is by a millennial band called Presidents of the United States of America. And although some of us might not know this band, it's on my iPod, thanks to my bicentennial friends. I can't make it play, but it's in some kind of playlist. But anyway, it's on my iPod. I can show it to you afterwards. It might be a little more current sounding. It might be a little different, but the message is still the same as what we play in our 60s and 70s. You know, it's still love, peace, rock and roll, Bobby Sherman. But before that, let's take a look at this video, which demonstrates why all of us, traditionals, boomers, Xers, millennials, Gen Z, why we all need each other.